I think we all have that moment in our lives. The one single thing we'd give anything to go back and do over again, just knowing what we do now. But that's the cruel irony of it. The knowledge is never there when we needed it. And for me, that exact moment was exactly 1 year ago today. Everything. Every small, seemingly insignificant detail still burned into my mind, just like I am watching it all happen right now. The sounds, the sights, the smells, the soreness in my feet and the stiffness in my back from working all day and late into the night as I walked inside my house, through the back door, into the kitchen, and found him sitting there across the room. Even from that distance, I could see the arm resting on the table was holding a pistol that was aimed right at me. It had been years, almost decades by then, but I'd never gotten over the feeling that my past would catch up to me one day. And there it was, sitting on the other side of my kitchen table. The first thought that crossed my mind, the very first thing I was going to ask, I never got the chance. "Your daughter's alive," the man said, catching my quick glance up the stairs. As he spoke, he leaned forward into the light. Guys like him, they never look like how you'd expect. No leather jackets or greased up slick back hair. No tattoos covering them head to toe or nasty scars across their face. The man I was looking at, if you walked by him on the street, you'd have no problem seeing him typing away all day in an office, hoping nobody notices him. Well into middle age, he had very mild, graying salt and pepper hair. The thick lenses of his back-rimmed glasses reflected back a solid white, hiding his eyes from view as they sat on his clean-shaven face. The way he was dressed, a plain grey polo shirt hanging loosely out over faded khaki slacks that all made him look like he just stepped straight out of a cubicle. Yeah, she's still alive. For now. Whether that changes or not depends entirely on if you do what you're told. So, sit. He instructed in that flat, almost bored tone as he tapped the barrel of his pistol against the top of the table. Even under the circumstances, the habit of setting my keys on the counter as I walked in was still there. But that night, the clattering sound seemed so much louder as it broke the harsh quiet of the room. "There you go, right there," he said as he watched me slowly ease my way down into the old wooden chair that let out a sharp crack as I let my weight sink down into it. "I don't imagine you need me to explain the nature of my visit tonight, correct?" "No, I think I can guess," I answered as I kept my eyes fixed on the gun in his hand. "You think you can guess?" "Yeah, I bet," he said with a heavy sigh as he stood up from his own chair. "Now, don't start feeling heroic. You stay right there like you're told. But I've been waiting on you for a while and I'm kind of feeling a little hungry. You don't mind, do you?" he asked, using the pistol to point over at the fridge. "No, go ahead," I answered, the feeling of defeat already setting in. "Take whatever you want." "I do appreciate that," he said, keeping up the pretense of manners as he opened up the refrigerator door and helped himself to what was inside. "Ah, real mayonnaise. I can't stand that Miracle Whip stuff, you know." "Nah, you get it," he thought out loud to himself whilst he proceeded to pick and choose from the different deli meats and cheese and things he planned to make a sandwich out of. "It's always when you get comfortable, isn't it? When things go wrong," he absently said to me as he swirled a table knife around the inside the mayonnaise jar. "You let your guard down. Stop paying so much attention to the little things that could have kept you safe. Ain't that right? Seems like it, I guess. I answered as plainly and steadily as I could to keep from agitating him. Seems like it, he repeated, finally looking up from the sandwich he'd been working on. You're following directions pretty good, it looks like. Yeah. You said you wouldn't hurt my daughter if I did what you said, I told him. So I'll do whatever keeps her alive. I'm not willing to risk it in a fight. Not at my age. Whatever keeps her alive, huh? Yes, quietly, as he held his wrist up to the light to check his watch. So, Douglas. Dougie boy. It's different when it's your daughter, that right? Can't let anything happen to your little angel, can we? You're not looking me in the eye, Dougie boy. A little disrespectful, don't you think? That's no way to treat your guest. You should maybe apologize. It took me a few seconds to bury down the frustration before I was able to take my eyes off the table and look up and lock eyes with him. I'm sorry. I mumbled out my apology, struggling to not look away again. Make yourself at home. There you go, see? A little bit of good manners goes a long way, don't it? He asked as he clawed a handful of potato chips out of the nearby bag and dropped them onto a paper plate next to the sandwich. Anyway, he continued, sliding into his own chair and sitting down across from me. I'm going to eat this delicious meal I prepared for myself, and while I do that, you're going to tell me a story. I want to hear all about why you think I'm here sitting at your table right now. You don't know why you were sent here to kill me? I asked as I watched him pop a single chip into his mouth. Whoa, hey Dougie boy, what's all this killing you talk, huh? We're just having a conversation. You said it, not me, he said, jokingly raising his hand to pretend he was unarmed. Come on. Why am I here? Let's drag some of them skeletons out of your closet. I'd really rather not, I told him. But I could tell by the look he was giving me, I didn't have a choice. What? You want me to tell you every bad thing I've ever done? Douglas, he sighed, rubbing the brim of his nose just under the glasses in frustration. You know which ones would get someone like me here in your house in the middle of the night. I don't care about the test you cheated on in high school. I don't even care about the drugs you sold. The bodies you hid. No, Dougie boy. Let's talk about the stuff you were too scared to tell the feds. The stuff you knew you wouldn't be able to plea deal your way out of. Why? What do you get out of it? What's the point? I asked as I watched him take a bite of his sandwich. You know when a cat catches a mouse or something? How it'll just kinda torture it until it dies? Ever felt the need to ask why the cat does that? No, not particularly, I answered, still wondering what he was trying to accomplish. Not particularly. Yeah, because it's a cat. It's just doing whatever its instincts tell it to because it gets a warm, fuzzy feeling when it listens to those instincts. And right now, my instincts are telling me to make you talk about your sketchy-ass history. And since I'm the guy with the gun, supply and demand, I finally said after giving up trying to argue with him. If there's a demand, then someone is going to supply it. The first time I had thought it was a friend of mine back in high school asking me if I had any interest in slinging a little grass for him. At first I told him no, but when he told me how much I could make, that it was twice as much as I was making flipping burgers for less than half the work, I figured someone's going to do it. Might as well be me, right? Of course, might as well be, the man agreed through a mouthful of sandwich and chips. After a hard swallow, he asked, Pretty humble beginnings though, ain't it? I guess so. But the same thought applied to the next opportunity I was given. Heroin isn't something your customers can just cut back on. They suffer if they don't get it regularly. It's a solid business model. As long as you don't give a shit about your customers, he added with a small smirk. But I imagine doctors throwing prescriptions everywhere for everything was pretty good for business too. The prescription runs out and then, where did they go? Pretty much. They were going to get it from someone, so why not me? Why not from you? You're just giving the people what they want, he said before standing up and retrieving a bottle of green tea from the fridge and twisting the cap off. So where do we go from here, doggy boy? What else did people want? It's not as easy to get guns in the other parts of the world as it is here. Eventually someone got me into trolling gun shows, straw buying whatever I could for as cheap as I could. We had a few contacts with some cargo ship captains who'd let us hide around the ship. We'd be put on the crew list, and then we sailed to wherever and hawk the guns off to whoever paid the most. A lot of barely developed, hole-in-the-wall countries mostly. Places like Japan were too hard to get the weapons on shore. Wasn't worth the trouble most of the time. Makes sense. Some people need killing. But knives? Too close. Too messy. Blood gets all over your handle, your hands, you cut your hand. People want the convenience of a gun. Why shouldn't they get it from you? He asked after taking a sip from the bottle of tea. But it didn't end there, did it, doggy boy? What's the next demand? Why does this matter so much to you? I asked, wishing he would just drop the whole thing and get to the point. Okay, I get it. You need some time to work up to it, he said as he sat the half-uneaten sandwich down on the paper plate. You know, I actually went to school to be an engineer. I really liked elevators especially, even as a kid. You walk into the room, the door's closed, you press a little button, and like magic, you're somewhere else. The mechanics of them are actually quite fascinating. You know, they actually have counterweights. It's not just a motor that does all the work lifting the whole apparatus up. You gotta account for that in your designs and blueprints. I remember when I was in school, I was thinking about nooses, you know? Like on the gallows when they pull the lever and the floor drops out, or when some sad fuck kicks a stool out from under him. But how ironic it really is if you think about it. When you're hung, it's your own body that really kills you. It's doing all the work. It's the same thing with those little snare traps they catch rabbits and things like that with just a clever little lure and trigger contraption that sets everything in motion. Sometimes I think that might have kind of put me on the path that led me, well, here. He told me as he leaned back in the chair, keeping his eyes fixed on me the whole time. But anyway, ain't that life? Constantly suffering under our own weight. The Buddhists, they say the cause of suffering or sadness or whatever is desire. We want all this stuff we can't have, or we have all this stuff we don't want to lose. We could just let go of all this junk, right? And just go with the flow. But we always gotta hold on to that stuff for dear life. Meanwhile, it's just pulling us down while the noose does its job. But sometimes all that weight, it gets so heavy that it just starts pulling other people down with us, doesn't it? Why don't you tell me about that next demand there, Dougie boy? He insisted, slowly glancing up towards my daughter's room. After a long pause and a heavy sigh, I started talking again. We started realizing that we were wasting a whole return trip. We had to take the boat back to keep a low profile and not show up at port, but it was a huge waste of time whilst we were on the ocean. So someone made a suggestion. Someone thought we should get into the skin trade. These countries, they don't keep up with people like they do here. People disappear all the time anyway. Thailand, Indonesia, the Philippines, New Guinea, Malaysia. Americans have a thing for Asians, and you can pick them off the street with a cheap rental van. Especially back then. And by the time anyone knows they're gone, you're already on open water. And not just Asians, right? He asked, holding his hand flat over the floor. They like him young too, right? Travel-sized. Plus, they don't put up the same fight, do they? But I see what you're saying. It's profitable. Continual profit over time. You don't have to invest much into them, and most importantly, it's a supply not many people can meet. And I imagine that has something to do with why you're here, right? Right you are there, Dougie boy, he said, an almost cheerful tone in his voice, before taking another bite out of the sandwich. You see, the problem with indiscriminately snatching little Asian girls off the street, pimping them out until they're all used up, you don't think about the fact that there are Americans of an Asian persuasion who go visit those countries. Very wealthy, very powerful, very well-connected Americans. And some of them have children there, Dougie boy. Oh yes, Dougie boy made a big boo-boo. I don't even know who you're talking about, I said as I watched him slowly reach into his pocket. Oh, I know you don't, Douglas. You're not supposed to, he told me as he sat some kind of small electronic device on the table between us. Then you're going to tell me what you're actually doing here? Absolutely, he agreed after taking another bite of his sandwich. My employer wants you to beg for your daughter's life. To give me a reason to not walk right up those steps, right up to her bed, and empty an entire magazine into her chest. Are you serious? I asked as he reached forward and pressed a small button on the voice recorder. Make it count, Dougie boy. You only got one chance, he warned me as he leaned back in the chair. I don't know what I can tell you. I can't think of a way to say I'm sorry for something I did over and over and over. I don't even think I really am. Those girls, they weren't anything to me. At least, no more than a way to pay my bills and live a life I wouldn't have been able to do trying to work a real job. I know. I'm sure I'm a piece of shit. But my daughter... Mister, she's never done anything to anyone, I said as I started to feel my eyes water. If I've done one good thing in my entire life, it's her. I'll freely admit I deserve every horrible thing you can do to me. She doesn't. Don't. Please don't hurt her. Not because of me. God damn it, just shoot me. Shoot me and leave her alone. I pleaded as tears began to roll down my cheeks. She's just a girl. She's got a prom coming up next week. She makes straight A's, babysits on the weekends. Kids love her. I'll do whatever it takes. Just leave her alone. Please. I begged through my trembling voice. Wow. That wasn't bad, Dougie boy, the man finally said after reaching over and hitting the stop button on the recorder. Tears and everything. You know, I gotta say, I think you really meant that. Felt it right here in my heart, he told me as he patted his chest. So here's the deal, Douglas. I'm gonna stand up. I'm gonna walk out that door. You are gonna stay in that chair until I'm long gone. We understand each other? I understand, I said through my voice catching in my throat. Alright then. Well, You did everything you were told, he said as he stood from the chair and crammed the last piece of the sandwich into his mouth. Like I said, until I'm long gone, he added, tucking his pistol back into his waistband. Been a real pleasure, Dougie boy, he told me with a smile before disappearing through the back door and out into the night. As soon as I was sure he was gone, I stood up from my chair, and the moment I did, it violently flipped itself upside down like someone had tried to kick it across the floor. What the hell was that? I thought as I stared down at it before I felt a deep sinking in the pit of my gut. When the realization hit, I ran as fast as I could up the stairs and slung the door open to my daughter's room, knowing something was wrong. And I was right. As I stood there, paralyzed in the doorframe, all I could see by the light of her lamp was her face, as her eyes stared wide and unblinking up into the ceiling, and that a gag had been forced into her mouth to keep her silent. Eventually, as I eased closer, I could see the cords that were holding her in place, anchored to the leg post of the bed. Sweetie? I asked as my voice began to shake again, but I already knew she wouldn't answer. By then, I was close enough to see the last cord that was around her neck and the mark it had left from where it was once trapped tightly enough to strangle the life out of her. Sometime later that night, the responding police placed a strange contraption on the table in front of me. They said it took them about 30 minutes to follow it down from her room and figure out what they were looking at. It was some kind of trap. They said, the best they could tell, when I sat in the chair, it set off some kind of trigger that caused the cord to tighten around her neck. They said me sitting in the chair acted as the weight that kept the cord tight. If I'd stood up, if I hadn't done what he told me, the cord would have come loose and she'd still be alive. The tension was what sent the chair flipping when I stood up. That man sat there, made me talk to him, tell him every horrible thing I'd ever done, while I was strangling my own daughter to death, and then walked out the door with a smile on his face.